June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, a time to shed light on the mental health struggles faced by men and encourage open conversation about men's mental well-being. And to dive deep into the struggles of what men go through, with me on the next episode is John Malaki. He dives deep into his journey with depression and how much community and camaraderie can really help men find themselves. Let's dive straight in, guys. I'll see you at the end of the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Honesty Policy Hour. I'm your host, Stephanie Marie, and it's time to put everything on the table on this beautiful journey of healing all areas of our lives, one deep conversation at a time.
Big reason for having you on is so many different things, but it obviously is June and it's Men's Mental Health Month. And every time I think about men helping each other out in their own community, you pop into mind a lot. So this is one of the big reasons that you are here joining me today.
Man, thank you for thinking of me.
Of course. You're I'll talk a little bit about how I met you as well. I feel that just shows a lot of the person that you are, and you're just a beautiful soul, you and your family. So I just wanted to talk a bit about that. So I used to work at the gym in Moonee Ponds that you were attending. And I think we just used to talk because I used to manage the gym and used to come in and be like, hey, John, you're always in the corner boxing, I remember.
Still the same. Things don't change.
I love that. And then I remember I just started my health coaching business and I had put a couple of things on my post about essential oils and you started following me, and then you popped up and said, are you into oils? And I said, yeah, I'm starting to dabble into it. And you're like, my wife, who is into it, you would get along with her so well. And you gave me her Instagram tag and we just became friends after that. And I love that. The connection is just beautiful. It means, you guys are awesome.
Oh, yeah. And it was so easy. I think for you, Steph, it was just easy for me to talk to. I just felt like a glow. You know, it's hard to go to places like a gym and kind of find someone that's kind of open. And I'm not hating on other gyms, but, you know, some managers at gyms are kind of a bit like, hey, and it's kind of, that's it. But with you, it felt really easy, really natural. And I knew that you were just inside and out, you're a beautiful person. And it was easy for me to connect to someone like you. So, and I knew that my wife would love you, and she does and still does. And I'm glad you guys have made that connection.
Definitely. She's just beautiful. You all are. And I think, you know, especially with you guys had home births as well, and connecting on that level was just another tier to our friendship. But it was just beautiful.
Yeah. I just love how it just started from that conversation, and then the layers, you know, there's more layers to it, more layers to it. And now I'm just like watching your journey now, and I'm just so proud of you and what you're doing. It's amazing. Amazing work. Amazing.
Thank you so much. It's been great. And having, you know, I think like this is a really big reason for this podcast is being open and vulnerable, and just seeing how connections can start. And my journey from vulnerability started at the gym because I started seeing how many people actually really needed that connection and, you know, at that conversation and opening like that. I just saw how many people were open to it, and it just shows that a lot of people are deprived of vulnerability and open conversations. Not saying that you are, but just in general. I saw that a lot. So and this is where it all started, and just seeing that, you know, being open can lead you to so many beautiful friendships and relationships. It's amazing.
Man, that's so true, because the more you're vulnerable with someone, then the more they're vulnerable with you. And then you find somewhere where you guys have a medium ground where you guys can connect and be vulnerable together and journey together. You know, and like you're saying, it doesn't happen with everybody, but when you find the right people or you know, that particular person, you get so deep, and there's so many layers to each person. It's like when you guys can connect, you can open up so much bigger.
And like you said, the layers, like it was just, it was oils, and then it was home birth, and it was this, and it was just so many things. And it's just, you know, it just shows that you just have to be open and just allow that, you know, it's like putting a fishing line out and just seeing who actually connects.
Yeah. It's like when you're peeling back those layers, it's like, man, I'm connecting so deep with this person where we need to be able to open up, we need to be vulnerable so we can, get things off our shoulders, lift that weight off our shoulders. And we're just all trying to journey together in this world, right? And finding other people to do it together with, man, that's for me personally, that's been the key for my journey. It's finding others that are happy to be vulnerable as well in the same boat, where there's not everything exactly the same, but if we can find somewhere where we can meet and connect, then it just opens up these other doors. And yeah, I just love that about you, Steph. I just love how you're so open. Such an open person. It's easy to talk to you.
Thank you.
Just
It means
it's
a
really
lot.
comfortable. Yeah.
It means a lot. Thank you. I do try my hardest. It's good, but thank you. But tell us a little bit about you and your journey and yeah, what your current life is like at the moment.
At the moment, just touch on it a little bit. At the moment, I'm a stay-home dad. I've got two amazing girls. Manoa, who's 4, about to be 5 in September, and then Benina, she turned 2 in Feb. So 2 little ones at home with me at the moment. This is my 2nd year being a stay-home dad. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's been hard, but it's been so much fun at the same time. And for me, it's been a journey of, I suppose, just embracing being a dad, like a full-time dad. Because, before it was like, I'll do my 9 to 5, I'll come home, I get my few hours with them, and that was kind of it. They go to bed and I wake up in the morning and just repeat. Then you get a bit of it on Saturday and Sundays, but there's other things that are involved in the weekends where you don't get that, I'll call it, that time where you can really connect. And I find being at home as a dad, a stay-home dad, I've been able to connect with him on a different level now, which I didn't have growing up with my dad. So it's about like breaking barriers and changing, changing the cycle of how I'm parenting.
Breaking that ancestral trauma, hey?
Yeah, just that, trying to start a different legacy with them. Not saying what my dad did with me was bad or wrong, just different. Yeah, so that's me at the moment. So the last 2 years has been just with my girls at home, just building that relationship.
Tell me a little bit about what the outside noise was like when you made this decision.
Oh man, I got it all. Honestly, sis, I got it all. So I got isn't the woman supposed to stay at home? It was that my pride did definitely got hit a few times.
I can imagine.
Even my parents, they were the same. So they were saying, first for them was financially. It's like, are you guys going to be all right financially and this and that? And kind of hit me, that hit my gut with that, because it was like, I explained to them what I'm trying to do. But, I think for Islanders, finances is a huge thing. So that was their first question. And even some others as well. Some other family members were saying to me, oh, are you guys going to be all right financially? And never really saw it for like the big picture, because all we see is mom's a stay-home mom, right?
See it in all cultures. I think it's quite, it's strange for people to see because it's not the norm. And, the judgment can be really loud sometimes. It's the fact that you're still doing it after 2 years, my hat goes off to you. Well done.
Yeah. Because seriously, it got to a point where with Manoa, we were like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do with her with schooling? Because I'll just be honest, like, she's not immunized.
Yeah, go for it.
None of our little two aren't, and they can't attend daycare. So these are the no jab, no play policy. So we had something in place at home. So we had a in-home daycare with a few other families in the same position. So we opened up our home. We had people come in. We had a carer that looked after 4 other. So it was 4 kids all up. And when COVID hit, we could no longer do that because of all the rules and this and that. So we stopped that, and it was just Manoa and Noah kind of running around the house while we worked. And it came to a point where we had to make some decisions and, like, what's going to happen with Manoa. And Rima just asked me one day, she just said, hey, do you want to stay home? And straight away, my first thoughts were like, nah, because that pride thing got in the way.
Of course.
And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, what are people going to think? I've seen those stay-home dads on videos, and they end up being all weird and whatever. But
Isn't it
in the
funny
back of
how
my
the
mind
pride
is
happens straight away? Sorry to
like,
interrupt. It's
honestly,
just so
straight
funny.
away.
That's the first thing that people pleasing hat comes on
Yeah,
instantly, doesn't it?
yeah. It's like, I've learned so much through church, like, never to compare yourself with others and things like that. But I just felt myself going, well, what are they going to think? What are they going to think? That was the first thoughts. And then, but to be honest, I would watch some of those videos and envy some of those dads that were stay-home dads. Be like, man, I wish I could do that. And this was my opportunity. And, we crunched some figures, we prayed on it, and it all worked out in the end. It's like, we can actually do this, live comfortably. Obviously got to sacrifice here and there, but if it means that I can stay home and build that relationship with my girls, man, I'll take that any day of the week.
So what was the main reason for you staying home and not Rima?
So Rima's the breadwinner in our family, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
Go Rima.
Yeah, she's a boss, man. She's
she's
a boss lady.
amazing. She sure is.
So just because I think we've had kids fairly late compared to some of our friends and family. So she managed to build her career to a point now where, she's earning a good amount of money. And she was like, if I was working, or if I went back to my full-time role, majority of my pay would go to care anyway, because like I said earlier, we couldn't get them into daycare. We'd have to actually get a private nanny, and it wouldn't be just Mana, it would be Benina as well. So it's double the costs. And we looked at it, we crunched some numbers and went, man, my pay will basically just go on that. And there might be like a little bit left over, like $300-400. And we just said to ourselves, man, we can sacrifice that, which it meant that I could stay home and look after the girls. And we just did it. And it's been, like I said, it's been our second year and everything's running smoothly.
Now that you've done both, you've been the stay-at-home dad and done the full-time work, what's harder?
I get asked that a lot. People ask me all the time, and I'm like, I think about it. Oh, that's a really good question. Because normally I just say they're the same, but to be honest, I would say the stay-home dad thing. And I take my hat off to stay-home moms, man. Honestly, before this experience, I was like, Rima would be at home because she'd take like a year off maternity leave and then go back to work. And I'd be like, if I come home, and honestly, I was that typical, I don't want to say typical male, but I was that come home if the house was messy. Like, what do you do all day? Like the bad, and then honestly, within like a month, like not even that long, I was
bit
like,
your tongue.
Holy heck. I was like, this is unreal. Like, so I'm trying to still juggle, homeschooling the girls, getting them dressed, feeding them, cleaning the house, having dinner on the and look, I don't get it right every day, but when I do get it right, trust me, Dima knows about it. But yeah, to be honest, I would say this is harder, but it's more. I say it's harder, but it's more rewarding. Hey, I suppose it depends on what type of job you have, but for me, this is I was a 9 to 5, sit in front of a computer all day. But this is much more rewarding, even though it's a bit harder.
Of course, it's especially being the typical father where sees them for a couple of hours after school, after work, and then on the weekends if you don't have 1,000 events on. And now going to this, that's incredible. What's the relationship now with the girls and Rima? Is it still, is it gone a little bit different? Like, are they as close? That's really interesting.
Man, great question. They're not too sure with other kids, but with my kids, Rima's still number one.
Wow.
She's still number one, and I'm there. I'd say she's like 1A, and I'm like 1B. But I have seen a lot of changes with Benina, my younger one, because so I've noticed things with her where if she hurts herself, she'll come to dad for that comfort, or she'll just come up to me and just give me a huge hug and just kiss me out of nowhere. Where the other two, I didn't really get that because I was working a lot when they were that young. So I've had Benina since basically she was 1. like up until now. So that all those little things, I'm like, whoa, like I don't remember Noah or Manoa doing that to me, because it was all about mum. Like it was 100%. Everything was
Wow.
mum. I'm hungry, mum. You know, I'm hurt, mum. But now it's like I've noticed with her especially, it's like she might ask me first for things like, Dad, I'm hungry, or Dad, I want to hug. And to
Wow.
me, that my heart is like, whoa. And I've even said to him a few times, man, is that what it feels like to get that much love from a toddler, or that like an infant? You know, and that's, I suppose that's my experience. And with other dads I've heard, you know, there might be the number ones or whatever, but for me, man, that was huge for me.
I can imagine. I see
Mm,
it with my husband Mark. He's Atlas is all about mum,
yeah,
always about
yeah,
I'm home with him, and it's a lot. So, you know, and I can see it takes a little while for him to warm up with Mark, like
mm,
especially after a weekend, you know, Friday night, Saturday, all day Sunday. By the end of the Sunday, there's a different bond because they've been home
yeah,
for a few days together. Whereas that few hours after work, it can take a long time to build that connection up again. And especially if you've had a really shitty day at work and there's, you know, you're
100%.
coming home with a lot of, you know, negative energy, or you're feeling, you know, you're taking on that mood.
Mm.
Kids feel that.
Oh,
And, you know,
100%.
it can kind of take a little while to wear off the work mode and bring on the dad hat. And, you know, switching roles, it energetically, it takes a lot too, you know, from being the work dad and then the dad at home. It takes a lot of energy. You know, I even see that from now doing this and being a mum. You know, I have to
Mm.
kind of just sit down and for a little while and just regroup and just, you know, put my podcasting hat on again and then go the mum hat. It takes a lot. It takes a lot.
Man, so true, so true. Yeah, because even with Rima, I noticed that too. Like she's got to take off that hat when she gets home, and the thing is with her, she's good at it, and I feel like that might be a mum thing or a female
Yeah.
thing. I'm not too sure, but there, I think because I think with women, what I've noticed, I keep saying not all women, but with my experience with
Yeah.
Rima,
Yeah.
is that she's quite like strong-minded, and with that she can do that, even though her job is I feel like it takes a lot out of her. She can come home, get off that train, and she just brightens up no matter. And then when the kids aren't around, she'll tell me how her day really was.
Yeah.
You know, and I take my hat off to all women that do that, because I've spoken to men where it's the same thing with must be the same thing with your partner. Like it takes them a while to kind of get back into like that dad mode, and then you build it all up throughout the week to have them on the weekend where they kind of like you, and then
Yeah.
you go back to Monday, and it's like you come home from Monday, and they're like they don't even want to have a bar with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It can take a little while.
yeah, and I
But
even felt that. Yeah, sorry, go.
sorry, go. No, I feel that a lot with, you know, I think I've only got the one son. So I think
Mm,
with boys, they're very mummy, where girls, I think
yeah,
they're a little bit more daddy. So, you know, now that you've got three, you've got Noah and then the two girls, did you see a difference in that as well?
yeah, yeah, I did. I feel like at the start, like the early ages, Noah was a mummy's boy, like big time, all about mum. But
Mm.
now as he's getting older, I think it's because dad can do more with him, like physically. You know, we'll go
Yes.
out and play bars. Like Rima tries, she tries to play sport. Like, she's so unco, she can't do it. Um, but I think he's drawn more to me with the physical, and you know, that's the sporting stuff, and the more the fun, the hypey, which I
Yeah.
love. You know, I'm all about that. But I've noticed that even with my girls now, especially Manoa, she's getting very like I'm sensing that daddy's girl is starting to come out more and more now. So
Cute.
I get big hugs, and I get cuddles. Like we'll sit there and watch a movie, and she'll cuddle me for the whole movie,
Oh,
which
stop.
is
That's
like
beautiful.
huge. Yeah, which is
Oh my
huge for
God,
me.
your heart would be so full after that.
Oh, I'm like taking selfies and everything, videos, sending it to Rima while she's at work. Like, how was work?
Look at this. Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful. But you know, it's funny because like I think if we did that, if the woman were to take selfies on the couch watching movies with their child, I know coming from me, I would have that sense of guilt of saying it's easy because we're just sitting on the couch watching movies. But
mm.
that's just an hour of the day or an hour and a half of the day, absolute max. You know,
Oh
you've
yeah,
got the chasing around and the food and the make sure you come home for nap time. And it's yeah, it's definitely it's not easy. That's for sure. And the fact that you're doing it and you can say it very clearly and loudly and proudly, it's really good.
Yeah,
Well
I
done.
think for me, I just wanted to break that mold,
Yeah.
that stigma on men, like we can't stay home. And I've had friends reach out to me, man, how do you guys do it? I wish I could do it. And I'm like, hey man, just crunch some numbers. Like what does wifey do? Or, somewhere find another income or do something else where you're able to stay home. You just got to be willing, I reckon you just got to be willing to do it. And if you can crunch numbers and just make it work, and maybe you might have to sacrifice a few things, man. It's coming from me, my experience. It's all been
Yeah.
worth it. It's
It's
all
just
been
the
worth it.
mental bit. It's the people pleasing. It's what are people going to think. It's the
Yeah.
adapting. That when you're making it, just before you make a big change, it's not easy. That's the hardest
Mm.
part. But once you're in it, you're like, oh, I could have jumped that hurdle easily a long time ago.
That's so true. 100%. Like it
It's
took me a
just,
little while to jump on board, but once I was on and was doing it, it was really scary at the start. But after about 2 to 3 months, man, it was just like, man, this is amazing. And I,
yeah,
I even still say to this day, Teddy Mom, I appreciate her so much, that
it's beautiful.
allowing me to do this. Because, man, like I said, in my wildest dreams, I never thought that I'd be a stay-at-home dad.
So you don't regret it?
100% no. No regrets on doing this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And how has it helped your personal journey with mental health?
Man, if I go back a few years, so I suffered from depression and I had anxiety, and I was just at a place where I just I didn't feel fulfilled with my life. Like our marriage was crumbling, and I was just going through like a really bad part of my life where I was just drinking heavily, doing drugs, and just everything. I was
Did you
going
have
out
kids
every
at this
weekend.
stage?
Not at this stage. So me and Emma, as we were going through this journey of trying to, work on our marriage, we thought, man, what's the best thing to do is like have a kid and just see how we go. We always wanted to have kids, but we just thought, man, this is the time. Like we should have a kid, and we'll do a journey from there. And then we had Noah, and for a moment, I was like, man, this is amazing. Like I felt like, yep, I'm my cup is full. I've got a little family now. I was happy with my job and work. And then after 6 months, things started to go downhill for me again, where I felt like becoming a dad, I couldn't do things, or I felt like I had to do more, almost to just prove myself. Like, yeah, I'm a dad, but I'm still allowed to do stuff. And the thing with Rima was like, she's never been the partner or the wife to be like, no, you can't do anything. Where that term "whipped" comes in. I've never been whipped, no matter how much my friends say it. But at that time, it was like, I was almost like trying to prove something. Like, man, I can still do whatever I want, even though I'm a dad. And I think I got even heavier involved in alcohol and drug abuse, and I went down a really bad spiral, where it got to a point where I didn't like work. I didn't want to work. I was just hating life at that stage. I know, sorry, this is probably going back a few years
No, it's okay.
before this part of this journey, but
Contents is good.
yeah, it kind of all molds into how
Yeah.
I ended up at home. Then a few years go by, and well, around that time, sorry, we had Noah. I was going down the spiral. We started going to church, and I felt like that filled that void for me, where I felt that kind of emptiness. And I went to counselors and psychiatrists, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't my fit. It might be for a lot of other people, but for me, it just didn't work. Like I went to a few sessions, and I'd end up just relapsing and going back to that same cycle. And then once we started going to church, man, our whole lives changed together. As a marriage, everything just got better. We built this community around us where we just journey, we do life together. And I'm not saying that we're perfect now, but things are definitely better, and I've still got imperfections that I'm trying to fix in that department too. So it's been a long journey. And with that work, the part of my work that came into it was, man, I just wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I wasn't enjoying it. Rima was still seeing it, even though I felt like I had a lot of healing through depression and everything else. That part of my life I was still struggling with, like, what do I want to do? I was getting older. I kept thinking, oh, I'll study next year, or I'll do something else. It wasn't until, I struggled all the way through those years and up until COVID hit. And we just really sat down and were like, man, what do we want to do? And same thing happened with Rima. She started her oily business, which is on a bit of a back burner at the moment. She's, really focusing on work at this stage, but, more things to come. But we both just were like, man, are we happy? Like God has done so much for us, mentally and in our family space, in our friend space. But work is like so important. Like, I think it's really important for everyone to find something that you're passionate about, where you want to turn up for work every day. Right now, what Emma's doing, she has some passion for it, but I know that's not her heart, and she'll happily say it's not. And we're working on things like that. So it's kind of like COVID, like, opened up this huge space for us to be able to go, man, what do we want to do? And for me, after COVID and me making the decision to stay home, that filled that void for me with work. So I was like, man, what am I going to do? So this time around, like, having these couple of years off, now I'm working on things. Now I'm working on myself. I'm working on things I want to do, my future, and, doing some study and staying at home, being a stay-at-home dad, even though it's got all the other stuff attached to it, man, it's allowed me to be able to research and educate myself to find something that I want to do and what space I want to be in. Because for me, it's like we just want to be happy now. We all know that finance is a huge thing in life, but if you can get by and be in a job that you're so passionate about, man, what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
There's nothing wrong with being passionate about something, getting by in life, but being happy. Like, you might see, for me, it's like watching people, and I gotta, like, pinch myself when I see people on social media. They're on these holidays and this and that. Man, you can set goals to that. You just gotta create more for yourself. Find other avenues of income that you're passionate about, and it can happen. It's just like a patient game, right? We just gotta wait.
100%. And like those holidays, they're like 4%
Oh
of
my
our
God.
year. There's such a small percentage. Like, it's how do your kids greet you when they wake up? How do you have breakfast together?
100%.
How do you have dinner together? How do you it's all these things. They're the 1%ers that make up 90% of your year. Like, that's huge. And if you can get that right, the holidays can wait. They really can.
100%.
They're just a bonus. They really
That's
are.
it. Yeah. Man, I
But the
100%
fact,
agree with that.
well, the fact that you've made those huge decisions and you're healing yourself while being a dad to your kids, like, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, the last 2 years, I've been able to just sit and just think um, and almost like let God reveal things to me as I sit and
Amazing.
just, sit and pray, and worship, um, just letting Him, like, speak to me, because I've had, trauma, things with old relationships that I've managed to be able to mend, like, during this time. Because when you're at work, sorry, I just need to check the charge in.
Go for it.
When you're so busy with work and life, you don't get time. I feel like you don't get time to do that
No.
because you're so
No.
busy, right? Your mind is going 1,000 miles, and you're just thinking about work and after school things and after daycares and picking up kids and doing the dishes and doing laundry. You actually didn't get time to just sit and listen. And if you don't have God in your life, you could just listen to your own thoughts.
Definitely. Silence
And
is
you get
key,
healing
hey?
that way. Man,
You do.
straight up.
You hear yourself, you hear everything else. You hear, like, stillness and silence. It's
Mm.
is such medicine. It really is. I think the busy bee and the busy man and woman, it's distraction from really what's happening and what's happening in our hearts. So once we sit in silence and stillness away from phones and TVs, that's where we start hearing stuff and we make change. It's very powerful. Tell me a little bit about your church. So is it you're Christian, yeah?
Yeah.
So did you have a belief prior? Were you like baptized? Like what was your journey with that prior to like during your party days and stuff like that? Will you still have that belief? And how did you find church?
Man, so I grew up Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
where in my household it was forced. So you're forced to go to church every Sunday. And my dad, put it this way, my dad is a real hearty Catholic. So his best mate is the priest at church.
Wow.
If a new
Gorgeous.
priest comes in, that's my dad's new best mate. So he's that guy. So
Cute.
we did everything. We did the Legion of Mary, where it was like a little group that played to Mary. We did choir. I was an altar boy. I was a Sunday school teacher, and I was everything. As I got to my late teens, so 18, 19, well, I want to probably say a bit earlier, 16, I was introduced to alcohol and weed. And through that time, I was still going to church, but I didn't have what I have now, is a relationship with God. So as I journeyed through that part of my life, it was like God was there, but it was almost just because I built that relationship, that way of being forced to go to church. It was like a toxic feeling when I heard church or that I had to go to church. It was like, oh, like that. Oh, I don't want that cringe. But as we journeyed on, I met Rima, and when we moved to Melbourne, as I mentioned earlier, we went through that whole journey of me going through depression, and we partied a lot, man. I felt like God was there because He would show up a lot during those years where I would get invited to churches, and I would just be like, "Yo, I'm going to go to my church." I always had that answer, "I'm going to my church," and it wasn't until our in-laws, they started attending this church called Life, here in North
Rima's
Melbourne.
parents?
And my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. So
Okay, yep.
Rima's sister and her husband,
Mm-hmm.
we were all living together in the same house, and they started attending this church, and we just started to notice little changes in them, like little things, like just more happier and more like lovey-dovey to each other. And this one time, I distinctively remember they went to a church camp, and they came back and they were just full of joy and all over each other and tickling each other. And I remember Rima looked at me and goes, "Man, I want that." And I was still in that mindset of, whatever, like, I didn't really care. And from there, they were inviting us to church all the time. So every Sunday, they just invited us. And I had every excuse in the book, and so did Rima. And at this time, I was still, doing whatever I wanted. So I was most likely hungover, or, probably just walking in the door. And it wasn't until Rima actually, my brother-in-law said to me, "Hey, they got free haircuts and free burgers at church this week." And I went, "I'm there." So God made a way, right? God made a way to get to me. He was like,
Oh my God. What is he like?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's fantastic.
Got me at the burgers.
That's so good.
And I went to church that Sunday, and I was like, walked in there and they were doing praise and worship. If you don't know what that is, it's a period it's the start of the service where we just stand there and we speak to God and we praise Him and we sing songs and we just that's our time that we get to lift off weight on our shoulders throughout the week. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Because I've never seen anything like that. Catholic Church is very different, where it's more like it's almost like a routine, or they have little segments of singing in that. But this was like praise. They were clapping hands high. People were on their knees crying, and I was like, man, this place is really weird. Like that was my first views on it. And then it wasn't until our pastor spoke, and that the word he spoke was, man, I just felt like it was for me. And what I've learned now, it's like, man, God comes at the right time. Like he comes, his timing, it's always his timing. And that sermon got me. So after that, it still took me a few months to like get my head around church and what's happening and what's going on. And within a few months, me, Rima, and my in-laws were baptized. We've got baptized all together. So
Wow.
and it's been
So just to
7
go
years,
back,
6 years
sorry.
now.
So it was Christianity, yeah? Is that what the
Yeah.
Christian church? So does Christianity and Catholicism, they're completely different things? Or they fall in the
I mean,
same?
I suppose it's the way they go about their services and
Mm,
preaching God's word. Um, so I think with the Catholics, it's more like you do this prayer and then, or you sing a song, you do this prayer, you lead on to this prayer, and it kind of, that hour block is almost built up of prayers that you've learned or you've got to read out of a book or booklet on that. I suppose it all revolves around the Bible. I think we
mm-hmm,
can put it that way. It's all
mm-hmm.
down to the Holy Bible. With Christianity, with our church, which is, I'd say it's more like a Baptist church, Pentecostal, where we have worship, and then we have a word, which is probably about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we almost just close off in prayer and we kind of go about our day. But for me, it's like the word part is where I get, I suppose, my filling, like my cup gets filled when I hear God's word through pastors. Because I
Yeah.
believe the Holy Spirit speaks through pastors to give the word of God. That's what I believe. I love our pastors so much because
It's beautiful.
I might go to church and feel so down about my week. And I go and listen because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to talk about.
No.
That's the beauty of it. You'll go into church and you might hear a song and worship and just listen to the lyrics and go, wow, like I needed to hear that. I needed to feel you, Lord. And then you get a word from it that comes out of it and you're just like, wow, that's now I've got this to use and to remember and take notes about, because when I have those feelings again, I can go back to it.
So tell me, when you said you went there for the first time and the pastor said something, you said, do you remember what he said? And you said you felt like
So
he spoke directly to me.
the word was about just coming as you are.
Yeah.
Coming to church as you are. You don't have to be fixed. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything together. I still don't. That stereotype of Christians being perfect and man, they're so good and goody two shoes. Man, we're far from that. We go through the same problems. We have the same issues on a day-to-day basis. The only difference is when we have those issues, we turn to God for the answer, or we lift it off. It's like a weight. When you feel that anxiety and you feel that stress, and it's almost like you're drowning in it. It's like this huge weight on your shoulders. God takes that from you. You surrender it, and you just, that peace that comes over you over things. So when something comes up, and look, with Christians, things don't always go smoothly. We might be praying so hard for something and it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean God hasn't answered our prayer. For us, we've learned that it just means that He's wanting us to learn from this, and what comes out of it is beautiful and amazing. Because when we look back at it and go, man, we're actually so glad that didn't happen, because then this wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
And now we're in a better place.
Everything in divine timing, hey?
That's it. But yeah, that was the word for me. It was like, man, it doesn't matter what you're being through. It doesn't matter if you got drunk yesterday. It doesn't matter if you're stoned right now. Like, you're in here listening to this word. God wants to speak to you, and He's telling you that He loves you. And that was it.
That's beautiful. And you created such a gorgeous community through your church as well. Like, I remember, I think it was during COVID. I'm not too sure, you can correct me. But the big thing that you were doing with your men in your community, I'm not too sure if it was your church or just people in your area, but they were coming to your house at like 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, training in your garage, and you guys would talk and pray and do everything and just, talk about what you're going through. And I think you know, fitness was a beautiful start to that, because I think, you know, when we start gaining weight, it's a big sign of depression, anxiety. It's a big sign of, you know, not looking after ourselves, and usually starts with the mind. So yeah, that was a big one for me. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Man, it was, for me, I was scared to do something like that. I was scared to become, say, a leader. I just never thought, you know, I had it in me to be able to lead men in an area like this, or any area, to be honest. And to us, it goes back to God. So I'll just go back a little bit about the setup. So I was on my own health journey just before COVID, and I was like, man, I need to get myself back on track. And like you were saying, all those old feelings were coming back to me, and it was because I was unhealthy and overweight, and you know, food does so much to your mental and your body. I just felt, you know, I was getting those feelings again, lazy and didn't want to work and this and that. So I went on a little health journey by myself and was just training as I went. And we moved out here, so we're now in the west side of Melbourne. And I went and had a walk with a couple of brothers that were starting their journey. And the chat was so amazing. I was like, and during that time I was doing a challenge. So I was doing I think it was a dad bod challenge, and it was 8-week challenge, and the winner gets $1,000.
Cool.
So we all chucked in $100. And this is during COVID, so there's no gyms open, and we're just trying to do it ourselves. Excuse me. And then after this walk, I was so inspired by them because I was going through a little slump. You know, you go through that slump in challenges, like week 3, week 4, you start to kind of
plateau. It's the same thing. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. After I had that walk with him, man, I just felt this light just ignite in me, and I was like, man. And I sat in the car and I prayed to God out loud, and I said, God, if you help me win this challenge, I'll build something in that garage for us, men out west. 4 weeks later, I smashed it and won that challenge. Flying colors. I won the challenge, and when I got the money, I was doing those ones and going, oh man, we really need this money. It's COVID. We're like, man, we really need this money.
Wow.
She goes, nah, you got to keep your end of the bargain. So I went, purchased the gym equipment, and then it's such a God thing because not long after that, people just started donating stuff to us. So my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they gave us all this equipment, all this extra equipment, dumbbells and boxing gear and all sorts of stuff. And I had another friend that gave us some mats, and now we've got this gym here. I was like, man, how do I get it started? So to be honest with you, I kind of left it with God a bit. So I just continued my journey, and then I started posting. on Insta, and it was really just to keep myself accountable. I was like, man, I got to post on here because I just want to make sure that I'm training, and you know.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me. I do that as well. When I'm going through challenges, I always post it because I've just like, it keeps me accountable. It keeps me, it makes me show up the next day because I'm like, oh shit, people are listening.
People listening and watching your journey.
Exactly. So were the boys coming to your house at this stage?
Not at this stage. So they started reaching out to me after they were watching my stories, and they're like, you know, can we do some training? And I was like, 100%, let's do it. And at that time I was like, thank you, God. I'm like, thank you for sending these mentors. So it started off with 3, and we were doing every Wednesdays and Saturday mornings, and it was going amazing. These guys were seeing amazing results, and then we had a whole bunch jump on. Not long after that, my brother-in-law, who's Leo, who's part owner of Tribute, he started opening up the space for us at Tribute every fortnight on a Saturday morning at like 5:30 a.m. And that was like no charge for us, and that's huge for him because, you know, as you know, that spot on a Saturday morning is huge for PTs, right? Like everybody wants that slot.
Definitely.
And I can imagine you can charge kind of whatever you want, but because people will pay it because they want it so bad, and he's been able to open that space up for us up until this day too.
Wow, that's so beautiful. This is the boxing gym, isn't it?
Yeah, the one in so there's three of them, but this is the one in Docklands.
Amazing. So the community that you created at your place as well with the training, what did it consist of? So you guys all rock up. What time was it?
That was a Wednesday. It ended up eventually it became a Monday and Wednesday. Around about five, and we'll go for
Wow.
about an hour.
Nice.
And a lot of it was some lifts and some high intensity. But the main part of it was the connection part. I felt like it was huge for a lot of men because a lot of them were coming from different walks of life and different walks on their journey of church, and some of them didn't go to church, and just seeing them connect, and now we're all really good mates. Now we're all real tight.
Men need each other. Men need each other so much.
100%.
They just to support and connect, and you don't even have to talk sometimes about what's going on. You just relate on a different level. You know, when you're living with the opposite sex, it's hard to kind of show up as yourself sometimes or relate to anybody. So having that, I can imagine how it's done wonders, because you showed the before and after photos of some of the guys. It was amazing. From dad bods to six packs at one of them. Incredible.
And it was crazy. But yeah, just having that space, like you're saying, so important for men to have that space where they can come and journey along other men that are going through the same things, where they can open up and go, "Hey, man, I've been through that. I can relate. This is what I did." And it doesn't have to be like a church community, and you know what I mean? Like, it can be any experience in life where you've managed to find a way to get out of it, and you got to share it. I feel like it's got to be something that's got to be shared and not be scared about to share.
You don't know who will connect with you.
Man, 100%. Like, you can be going through, you could be at rock bottom, and if you just opened up to someone, you never know what can come out of that conversation.
Goes back to vulnerability, hey? Just being brave 100%. Enough to share your mess.
Yeah, and that's the experience that I've gotten out of the group of men. Seeing grown men break down and cry, man, it just does something for someone that doesn't share and and is really shy about sharing. I noticed that once they see a man cry about something, they're like, wow, like, I can open up now. But it just takes that guy to be able to be that open. And I'm not saying to purposely cry because you want other people to open up, but just having that vulnerability to be able to go, man, I don't care about if you're going to judge me or not. I'm going to open up the space because I want other men to heal from it too, or I need healing too. And it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see. Beautiful to see. I've had one guy. I just want to tell you a little example. I had this one guy who he just let himself go. Overweight, and he was unhappy with his marriage, unhappy with his life. He had a few kids. I don't want to say exactly the number, but he had a few kids, and he was like, man, I need something. I need something. And he saw one of my stories, and he saw us men training, and he reached out to me and goes, man, can I come and join your group? Man. And at first, it wasn't even about the health side of things. It was just seeing men journey together and connect. So he started coming, and man, he had a huge 360. And it was a combination of his health improving. So he lost a ton of weight within, I think, 6 months. He lost like over 25 kilos. And it was it was crazy just to seeing the change in him, not just physically, but mentally. He said to me that, man, his life at home improved just as much as his health.
Wow.
Spending more time with his family, spending more time with his wife, being more intentional with his time with them. He was outside running with his kids that he hadn't done for years, and he had older kids that were actually sporty and doing things, where he was that dad was kind of like telling them what to do, but not setting the example. Now he's being the example. Yeah.
What a legend.
That was huge. That was huge for him.
That would have been such a beautiful thing for you to see as well, because of how, just from one thing of how you could actually help these people. Like, that's incredible. And having a community where you can feel comfortable enough to just be yourself. But even like I was saying, even if you didn't have to talk, just being around and feeling that camaraderie of, you know, manship, it's just so healing. It's I'm just so inspired by what you've done. It's incredible.
Man, it's so true, like what you just said, like just being in that presence and feeling, you know, feeling that connection and feeling the vulnerability in the air. It just does. I feel like it just does something to you. Like you can just sit there and be quiet and never say anything. You see that every week, or you see that every so often you go, you start changing yourself, and for the better too.
Definitely. You are such
Mm,
a reflection of who you are around and what you're doing, and, you know, being around people that want to improve.
mm,
You have no choice but to improve if you be around them long enough. Definitely. That's amazing. You were saying how you were doing a little bit extra with your church group, more of aside from the training.
mm.
Is that still happening as well?
Yeah, so that's once a month. A group of us men get together, and we just open up. We just open up with everything, and it's something that you can kind of sit there and listen, um, and that's okay. Like, you know, I believe like holding space where you can just come and listen. But like I said earlier, when you see a grown man cry, it's hard to just sit there and go, "I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with my life." Um, but that has been huge for myself, you know, because I felt like when I was giving a lot of time to the health group, you know, some of me was I was lacking. You know, my how like how can I fill someone else's cup if my cup is half full? So I felt with me, I need that group. I 100% need that group, and Rima knows that. There might be times where I don't attend, and I'm feeling a little bit, you know,
On
I'm getting
edge.
grumpy. Yeah, Rima's like, when's the next men's group? No, I'm no joke. I come back and I'm like a different person.
Is this
Because it's
hosted
just
by
that
the
space.
church?
Yeah, so it's hosted by the church.
Mm-hmm.
One of our leaders, Joe. So he's been carrying this for multiple years, where the group started out quite small and now it's just growing. And I feel like now is the time where there's so much noise, like you mentioned, there's so much noise, social media, not even just social media, but even just everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got something to say if you're going through something, but no one's there to just listen. And that's the beauty of this group, because we just sit there and we just listen. And 9 times out of 10, someone's gone through the same thing that you've gone through, and they can help in the area. Or if no one's got anything for him that time, we just lay hands on him and we pray over him. And there's nothing like being in the cafe, because so we met in the cafe. And if I was like at that cafe and I see some men talking and praying over someone, man, that would just do something for my heart. At
Of
first, you know,
course.
before I became a Christian, I'd probably be like, oh, it's a bit full on. But if you step back and actually look at it for what it is, man,
Of
that's
course.
huge.
Of
Hey.
course. It doesn't matter, like, you know, spirituality, regardless of what God or what you follow, it does something for you. Like,
Yep.
I don't know if you've heard of the blue zones, but it's the 5 countries in the world that live to like in their 120s. And
Oh.
the biggest and the main common denominator for all of them is that they believe that there is a higher power besides themselves. And that is that if you are walking around this earth and you believe that it's just you and there's no God,
Mm,
you feel like the world is literally on your shoulders. But when you have that belief that God is there for you, yeah, he's got your back always. So
yeah.
it's just different. It's different.
Mm,
It helps you live your life, and the fact that you found that community and it's just healing you with it. It's creating a community for you. It's creating a place for you to be a father, and you know, you've got a son, so you know, his self-esteem is your self-esteem. His confidence is your confidence. So the fact that you're creating that is just, you're healing him before he's even hurt. It's beautiful. You know, you should be so proud of yourself, because I'm very proud of you. Well done.
Oh, thanks, Steph. But you're so right. Like, for years I just would walk around kind of like, man, what's this all about? Like, there's no purpose. And I think finding God was definitely that filled that void for me. And it's just a matter of like taking that leap and going to church. And but whatever it is for anyone, I do feel like being able to open up somewhere, like it doesn't have to be church, it doesn't have to be through God, but if you can find like a group of men or even a group of women that you're able to just open up and be real with, man, it changed my life like 360. If you knew me before my journey started, man, you wouldn't even think I could have like turned out like this. The road I was going down a tunnel with no exit. Like, it was just long and long and long journey.
So just before we end the conversation, I just wanted to ask you, in regards to, men's mental health in particular, what's any advice that you can give just to help men that are in a similar position that you were in the past?
Reach out. Find a group of men that you can be vulnerable with. And if it's, a best mate or a cousin or a brother, just someone that you feel comfortable doing it with. Because when you open up and become vulnerable, it definitely unlocks something in you. I feel like when you say it, or you let it off into the world, something comes back to you, whether it's an answer or some help. I do feel like every man needs a group of other men to be able to just open up and be honest, and not be any fear of any judgment, because I know that judgment is a huge thing with men. And yeah, just find a space where you can be vulnerable.
That's beautiful. And for their partners, for the women that have have their men in a similar situation, what advice do you have for the women to help their partners?
I would say just support them, support what they're going through. And if it means that you have to stop asking those questions, you might just have to stop asking questions and just let them sort it out themselves. But I would have to say, getting them into a men's group of some sort definitely would help.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, John, for all your words and your vulnerability. It means a lot. I really appreciate you. Thank you again.
Oh, good. Thanks, Steph. Love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Amazing work.
Thanks so much, John. Have a beautiful day.
You too. See you later.
See you later. What a beautiful conversation. That was just, it warmed my heart. So thank you so much for listening, wherever you're listening from. Have a beautiful day. Peace. That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the episode and received a few good takeaways from it. If anyone popped into mind while you were listening that you feel may benefit from it, please share it across. Your support really helps promote my podcast. And to follow all the latest things that I'm up to at the moment, you can find me on Instagram at Steph Marie Holistic Healing. Thank you again, guys. Have the best day, and we'll see you on the next episode.